Reverend Dr. Pamela Fox is a licensed clinical social worker, a Texas board approved social work supervisor, and an ordained minister in the United Church of Christ. Dr. Fox is an assistant professor in the practice at the University of Texas at Arlington School of Social Work, where she has served on the executive committee, on the Culture and Climate Subcommittee, and the Diversity Studies Program. And she's a member of the Interprofessional Continuing Education Planning Committee as well. And to add to all of her distinguished attributes, she's the clinical director of Synergy Counseling and Coaching Center and Foxfire Outreach Ministry, where she provides individual and couple psychotherapy and social work supervision. Dr. Fox earned her PhD in social work research from the University of Texas at Arlington School of Social Work, a Master's of Divinity at my alma mater, McCormick Theological Seminary, and a Master's in Clinical Social Work from the University of Chicago School of Social Service Administration. Dr. Fox is published in journals and books, and she is a wife, a mother, and a grandmother. I know Dr. Fox because she was my mentor when I was in seminary, and that was decades ago. And I was so blessed to be able to have been paired up with such an esteemed woman of God. Not only her background was compatible to something that I at one time thought about going into, but guess what? My mom and my sister beat me to it, so I went to teaching. But we were matched up because of my psychological, and somebody said that we were similar, and we were. It was a great match made in heaven and seminary. And so I'm grateful to her because she guided me along the way to prepare my ordination paper and to get out of McCormick Theological Seminary. And so I am so grateful for Reverend Dr. Pamela Fox. Now, this other beautiful lady that you see on the screen is Dr. Sandy Gibson. And Dr. Sandy Gibson is a native of Little Rock, Arkansas. She's a Southern girl. After high school, she went on to Oklahoma for undergrad, and she attended Oklahoma State University for medical school in Tulsa, Oklahoma. After graduating, Dr. Gibson moved to Chicago for her residency. And she was at Ravenswood Hospital, then to Cook County Hospital for Family Medicine Residency Program, and then became board certified in family medicine. Dr. Gibson completed her training and began her work as a primary care physician for Rush Prudential HMO and at several urgent care centers, while serving as an instructor at Malcolm X College in the respiratory therapy and physician assistant program. Dr. Gibson was also a medical director for a community clinic, as well as for urgent and emergency medicine. She's participated in clinical research, became a physician advisor, worked with medical students and family medicine residents. Dr. Gibson is married to Joe Davis, and she has a beautiful daughter who is also in college. I know Dr. Sandy and have known her for literally decades. When my children were younger, she was my doctor. Yay! Dr. Gibson was my family physician, and I owe everything to her. For taking care of my children and I while we were a part of Rush Prudential HMO. So not only do we have some really powerful women, I've got some sisters that I love dearly and whose mentorship and guidance I treasure so very much. So look, we're going to get into the discussion at hand, mental and physical health. I have a couple of questions I want both of you to respond to, if you will. And one of the things that has been coming up a lot since the pandemics began has been trauma, the topic of trauma. Most of us have either read or are familiar with Dr. Joy DeGruy's Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome, a book that addresses the trauma African Americans have potentially suffered because of multi-generational oppression that began during slavery. Most recently, Resmaa Menakem wrote My Grandmother's Hands, Racialized Trauma and the Pathways to Mending Our Hearts and Bodies. And then I recently just ran across a book by Dr. Bruce Perry and the infamous Oprah Winfrey. It's called What Happened to You? Conversations on Trauma, Resilience, and Healing. So my little working definition, and you can certainly change this because you are more of an authority than I am, but my working definition on trauma is that it is a deeply distressing or disturbing experience that can affect our perception, thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. Trauma is stored within the body, held as memory or memories of an experience that you might or might not have experienced directly. Whew, that's something right there. So it's interesting that conversation has come back to the surface. So I would like for you all to share with us, why are people talking about trauma, and how do you see the effects of it in your profession? So Dr. Gibson, can we start with you?
Yeah, of course. So my definition kind of goes along with your definition, basically. And trauma to me means it's a distressing experience that one, or an event that one has had in their life, and and then you develop an ability not to cope, not to function. And it seems like you go into a downward spiral in life, and you have a negative outlook on life. So, and that's something that some people can carry with them for the rest of their lives, or some people can overcome it, or some people can just kind of play it off and say, oh, well, it doesn't bother me. I'm just living, I'm just existing. So trauma can affect you in all kinds of ways. For me, it's a physical point, it's a psychological point, it's an emotional point, and it also can be a mental statement. So, and trauma can come in all different kinds of styles, from verbal to physical to something, an example like losing your job, going to jail, being in prison. So those are some looking at violence, dealing with violence every day, or even just the mental abuse, people putting you down, or example. Let me just give you an example. I see teenage girls who are fighting amongst each other and saying not nice things that are not so nice to each other, and so. And that can be very traumatizing to a junior high student, a high schooler, who then starts to think about all kinds of things like suicide. Am I not good enough? And what's wrong with me? So all those different things that you would have to deal with, from that psychological and emotional standpoint.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Fox.
Just add to that my understanding of trauma, my experience, clinical experience, is that trauma is things that occur outside of the normal range of human experience. And so it could be something that acutely happens, like happened today or happened recently, or it can be chronic, things that happened back in the day and were either a one-time event or accumulated over time, where things just kept happening. And as Dr. Gibson's already mentioned, it could be just a variety of things. It could be bullying. It could be sexual abuse. It could be physical violence. It could be verbal abuse, emotional abuse, financial abuse, et cetera, et cetera. And all of that can be traumatic to that person, things that happen outside of the range of normal human experience. Certainly is my pleasure to be here with all of y'all and my colleagues and friends out there in virtual land, because May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And so NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Health, would remind us to be mindful about that, because there is stigma associated with being a person who has post-traumatic stress or post-traumatic slave syndrome. And so NAMI would remind us that mental health is one of the most stigmatized health issues that's out here. It is a health issue. And so it's something that is all over the world. People of all sorts have mental health challenges, but the stigma needs to end here, and it needs to end now, because the stigma, meaning that people don't want to talk about it, people want to kind of keep it in the background and what have you, they don't want to address it, when many times it's a brain chemical imbalance that can be helped with medication and talk therapy and some other measures that come to the forefront. So this trauma-informed care is like things that are being really talked about a whole lot right now. So there are a couple of principles I would share at this time about what trauma-informed care entails, both for the psychotherapist, the counselor, and also for organizations. Organizations need to be trauma-informed as well. And the 5 principles are that of safety. So you have to create safe space for people they can feel comfortable in talking, that they need to know that they have choices. Maybe back in the day when the traumas happened, they didn't have much choice. So choice is very important to trauma survivors. The issue of collaboration. So the therapist or the counselor can't be the be all and end all, because there needs to be a support system that is created, that there needs to be a climate of trustworthiness, because back in the day when the trauma occurred, maybe there was trust that was broken or violated. And also the issue of empowerment, that we're supposed to be about the business, both as professionals and also as organizations, of empowering people. And the reason why, as you mentioned, Reverend Seaton, about why is this coming up now, is because over the past year, in particular with the COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic, we have been traumatized in terms of public health, in terms of mental health, in terms of our economic situation, recession on the horizon, in terms of racial reckoning, and the list can go on and on and on. So we're dealing with multiple pandemics at this time, and people, everyday people are totally overwhelmed and need support systems available.
Yes, absolutely. This conversation on trauma could go on and on and on, because, and I would just encourage those of you who are watching to do some research on it, because one of the things that has been important to me as an educator, as well as a pastor, but certainly as an educator, is understanding that many times the behavior students would act out was not always something they were responsible for, because it could have been something that happened to their great-great-grandmother. And it's just been passed along, through the genes, behaviors that have been exhibited in families. And so it helps you deal with people a little bit more, I guess, more gingerly when you have that kind of understanding. Well, anyway, I said I was going to do a couple of questions, but I'm going to move on, Dr. Fox. One of the concerns, too, that has come up, and you've certainly mentioned that, is seeking help for the things that are going on. And especially in the Black community, mental health has, as you said, been taboo. Nobody wants to talk about the uncle that was locked up, because or whatever, or the person that's whatever the case may be. Some of us don't want to seek help because our faith informs us that we shouldn't. And so what is therapy? Is there a difference between therapy and counseling? What is therapy?
I'm going to share that with you in just a minute, but I want to address what you just said about historically, in terms of our community, African-American community, not seeking help when it's obvious that could help. And so I think that, again, that stigma issue has come up for so many of our folks in the African American community, where the messages from the family or friends or others may be, you don't tell family business outside the family. Mm-hmm. Just pray about it some more, you'll be all right. Or read your Bible more, go to church more. And what I know also as a marriage and family therapist is that there are what they call the 7 dysfunctional family rules. And I'll just share that with you right quick. And the rules are, you don't trust people outside of your network. Mm-hmm. You don't talk about your feelings. You're not honest and open about what's really going on with you. You displace anger. You project blame. You scapegoat other people. And you maintain the family secrets. So those rules, if you will, are barriers to help seeking. Mm-hmm. And the interesting thing is that those rules apply to us as individuals. The dysfunctional family rules apply to us as individuals. They apply to us in terms of our family system. And I'm going to let you in on a secret. All families are dysfunctional. It's just a matter of degree. Mildly, moderately, or severely dysfunctional. It's just a matter of degree. All organizations are dysfunctional. And Reverend Seaton, all churches are dysfunctional. Have to say. So this dysfunctional family thing, it just goes on and on and on and on. So it's kind of part of the human experience. So once we acknowledge, yes, those shoes fit my feet, then what are you going to do to make it somewhat better? And the somewhat better part is where the therapy comes in, therapy and counseling. My understanding of therapy is that it's a healing process. It is a mental health diagnosis and treatment process, typically called talk therapy. One of the most widely used talk therapies is that of what they call CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, where you're dealing with reprocessing negative thoughts and trying to talk about more positive outcomes. There's also interpersonal therapy, where there's relationship conflict. So you try to look at building communication skills, and also psychodynamic therapy, which I was brought up in back in the day when I was a budding young therapist. And that has to do with looking at past issues, past historical issues, family issues, etc. And so counseling, I would say, is very important. Oh, before I go further, psychotherapy is provided by licensed professional people, be that psychiatrists, psychologists, licensed social workers, licensed professional counselors. But all these providers are people that have a state license and are authorized by the state to provide mental health services. The counseling may be provided by licensed professional people, but it also may be provided by peers, specially trained people who are specialized in, let's say, bereavement counseling or something else, substance abuse, like AA or NA, Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous. And so there are peer support groups and counseling that goes on there. And so in counseling, what's provided there is assistance and guidance with resolving personal or social or psychological issues and concerns, maybe some referrals and resources that are provided as well. And there may be some mental health flavor to it, but primarily with the psychotherapy is where the real mental health diagnosis and treatment occurs. And so again, with the stigma issue, what that all represents in terms of us as a people who are unfortunately living with issues of racism and oppression, et cetera, those two may be about our mental health issues and concerns.
I was going to just, I wanted to add, with those 7 rules, I think that it may be a difference with older people in the family versus younger people in the family, because I think younger people tend to share more and to say more and to express more and say what they're feeling directly, whereas the older we are, that's the 60s, people who were born in the 60s and on back further, we can like, oh no, we have to keep this close to our chest. We can't talk about it outside. Whereas the younger generation, like, no, we need to have a conversation about it and let's just be real. Let's just keep it 100 and let's talk, So I just think that there's a difference now to me when it comes to therapy or having conversations. And also the younger generation, they tend to go to their so-called, I guess, friends or whatever they say they are, to express and how they feel and what's going on with them, as opposed to going to a certified therapist or whatever. And so I just think that's just a little bit different. That's a difference for me, what I have observed.
And I would add, what's been a breakthrough too for the younger generation is that, and the middle age and some of the older adult generation, is that Oprah said it's okay to see a therapist. Jan Levon Sant said it's okay to see a therapist.
Right.
Taraji P. Henson said it's okay to see a therapist.
Sure did.
So I think a change is coming right now.
Right.
And again, the pandemic has highlighted the fact that it's okay to go see somebody, because I'm a troubled soul and I need somebody to talk to.
Right.
And just get all these rules that I've been taught in the past by grandma and grandpa and stuff like that. I got to go get some help because I'm lonely, I'm sad, I'm stressed out, I'm locked up in this house, I'm quarantined. I need to talk to somebody virtually since I can't talk to them face to face, but I need to be in contact with another human.
Right.
I want to thank you for distinguishing between therapy and counseling, because one of the things that I share with parishioners that come to me in a counseling setting is that I am not licensed or clinical. And so I can only take you so far. And then if it seems that the issue is not getting better, then I need to refer you out. But that's rare oftentimes in the Black church. You know, a lot of times pastors pretend to be what they are not. And that's, well, I'm just going to call it like it is because it is true, because I know people who have been messed up by seeking ongoing counseling by people who are not qualified to do that. But of course, you've got to be able to say that it's okay. But I learned that at McCormick. So, then it was continued at Covenant. We were informed how many times we could see a parishioner before we needed to refer them out. Yeah.
Because what I know as well is that there has been, unfortunately, in some churches, because of the lack of preparedness of the pastor or the associate pastor, whoever the case may be in terms of that go-to counseling person to provide the pastoral counseling, is that some of the parishioners are experiencing church hurt and toxic faith from the past. And so they just feel just wanting to have a family of faith, so they reconnect themselves with the church. And so what comes up for them is toxic faith and church hurt. And so then they go to the pastor or the point of contact to process their thoughts and feelings about that. And if that person, a go-to person, is not trained at some baseline level about pastoral counseling, then that could be a problem that exacerbates the church hurt and the toxic faith, which is a trauma to the person who's experiencing that. So the skill set needs to really be there for the person who's doing the counseling, and the person who's doing the counseling needs to know when a situation is above their pay grade and they need to refer to someone else. So you're right on with that.
That's right. Amen. So let me ask you this. Have you seen an increased need for mental health services? Because I know you do psychotherapy.
Yes. That would be a yes.
That would be a yes for me as well.
My phone is ringing off the hook. I'm almost having to turn people away. I'm a solo provider, so I'm not in a group practice. So I'm the chief cook and bottle washer in my practice, and so I have to do everything: answer the phones, send email, that kind of thing, paperwork, and all that stuff. So it's only so much I can do by myself. And the volume of calls and contacts and Dr. Fox, can you see me? When can I come in? Over the past year has been awesome, but it's been a little overwhelming. People are seeking mental health services like nobody's business. And it's a wonderful thing, but it's going to have to figure some stuff out as time goes on.
And there is a huge shortage of psychotherapists and psychiatrists in this country. And every day they're looking for someone to fulfill those shoes, to step into those shoes and actually provide those services.
Yes. And prospective clients here lately are looking for culturally specific therapists. So they said, I only want an African-American female or male therapist.
Right.
Because that's what I want. And we're, as they say, we're scarce as hen's teeth.
Oh my God.
Ain't a whole lot of us out here.
Wow. We've got to encourage our young people then to move into that profession. Absolutely.
Because it requires minimally a master's degree.
Yeah.
And then the pursuit of the licensure.
Right. Amen. Well, look, I know our time, I don't want to get too far beyond our time, and I would like to come back to you, Dr. Fox, if I can. I also want to say something I forgot to say, that those of you that are a part of the webinar, if you would like to put a question in the chat, we will do our best to get to those questions. I came up with some questions, and some of them have been answered along the way, and, so that's fine. We can move right along. Dr. Gibson, I know that you have some slides you want to share, so I don't know if you want me to ask you the question or you're going to narrate it for us, or how exactly do you want me to do this?
You can ask me the question and then I'll pop up my slides.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, the focus of the conversation I wanted to have with Dr. Gibson is about the virus. I called her several months ago because, as I have shared with my church family and those my own personal family, I had some ambivalence about the vaccine. And of course, that was last year before the election. And so that I'll leave it like that. And so I had some serious ambivalence about it. Is this the truth? I actually did not make up my mind to have the vaccine until several days before our vaccine day. We hosted 2 vaccine days at the church, and something happened, and I just said, okay, I'm going to do this. So anyway, so that's the conversation that Dr. Gibson and I had months ago. And so what is the coronavirus? I know people, we've heard this so many times and all of that, but what exactly is the coronavirus and how do we become susceptible to it?
Okay, let me just share my screen.
Okay.
So going down to slide 5. First, I wanted just to say, then you talk about what is the definition of a virus. Mm-hmm. So the virus is it's an infectious agent or a bug that can attach to something and multiply, and it attaches to living cells, all types of cells that it affects animals, it affects humans, it affects plants. So then you go on and you go on next, and we have all types of viruses. We have viruses, millions and millions of viruses. So there's a family of viruses that are associated with the SARS. And so as you break it down, there's a coronavirus. The coronavirus is this spiky type of protein that sits on a virus that causes an infectious process that can that can actually go in and attack your body, even hijack all your healthy cells. Or some people, once they actually contract or susceptible to the virus, they can have symptoms or they will not have symptoms. Some people, it can be very overwhelming, and some people, they have no symptoms whatsoever. So here, as you see in my picture, you see the little spikes. Those are the spiky little red proteins that looks like a coronavirus, and that's a bad virus that you worry. So once it actually goes into your body, and especially people who have a whole lot of comorbidities meaning hypertension, diabetes, obesity, asthma, these people are really affected by this virus, and it goes in and starts to attack the body. attack all the healthy cells that you have. And so I knew once the pandemic started that me being, I wear two hats. I do utilization management. Also, I work in the ER. So I knew that if they came out with a vaccine, I was going to take it regardless, because every day I would walk out of my house, go into the ER, and I would say, God, you are my armor, because I don't know what's going to happen. And when the pandemic initially began, I set especially my daughter, I set her down. I said, this is my will. This is where all my things are. This is what you should be receiving. This is whatever, I just delineated it all out just in case I actually succumb to or catch the coronavirus, because I was not sure. Because working in the ER, whatever walks through that door, this is what you had to see. Now, was I afraid? Yeah, at first I was. Some of my colleagues, they kind of teased me because of the protective gear, the PPE. We were lacking initially. And the savings grace for me was that I had some friends that lived in Washington, D.C., who were Secret Service agents. They had boxes of PPE that they put in the box and sent to me. So I said, let me share that with my colleagues. Don't sit on it by yourself. Share some of these things so my other colleagues can also be protective as well. So, but then after we actually started getting some PPE, I would wear 4 at a time, because I just felt like they only said you needed one or two, but I was like, no, I'm wearing 4 because I need to protect myself. So they would always ask, well, how did you breathe? I said, well, I didn't worry about it. I just hold my breath and go. So that's how I looked at it. But this is a virus that really goes in. It affects all the healthy cells, and it's a protein that acts as a receptor, goes into those cells, and just kind of like if you go back to the game, remember the game Pac-Man back in the day, and you think about Pac-Man going through gobble gobble gobble, I got you, gobble gobble gobble, I got you, gobble gobble gobble, I got you. So I look at coronavirus is an example of that. If people can just picture that in their mind, that this is what is happening inside their body. I mean, Pac-Man is really eating you up. So what are you going to do to protect yourself? What are you going to do to protect yourself? And so every day I would send out emails or on Facebook to family members and friends. These are the things that you need to do to protect yourself. Because if you actually catch the coronavirus, you don't know what's going to happen to you. You don't know if it's going to be, because it's 50-50. 50, you may live. 50, you may die. So you just don't know. Even to this day, you still don't know. You're still 50-50. So I was just so determined that if they come out with something, I'm going to take this vaccine. And I'm just going to, because at least I know, at least I have a chance that I am going to live. If I don't take that vaccine, then I don't know if I'm going to live. I have no idea. I don't know how it's going to affect me. And I don't know what the long-term effects will be, even if I live through it, because they call it now long-haul COVID. Long-haul COVID is where you're having these symptoms every day, from brain farts to joint pains, headaches, and so forth. And it's going for a long period of time. So I just made that conscious decision for myself that I'm going to take it. Yeah, I don't know what the long-term effects of the vaccine will be. We all don't know. Even just listening to Sanjay today on CNN, we just don't know. We don't know. But we do know one thing. It at least gives you some protection if you're fully vaccinated. If you're fully vaccinated, that's the thing. fully vaccinated. So being fully vaccinated, getting both of the shots gives you at least 97% protection. If you only take one shot of the Pfizer or the Moderna, you only get anywhere from 52% to 65% of protection. So just think about that. Think about that. Now, example, my cousin, I had a cousin, they all received the first shot. They all thought, oh yeah, I got it. I'm safe now. They all went out to a restaurant or somewhere, had to a party or whatever. Every last one of them developed COVID because they didn't have the full protection. So the first shot doesn't give you the full, just what Johnson & Johnson's supposed to give you some protection, but it doesn't take you up to 97% like the Pfizer and Moderna. Okay. So just keep that in mind, that I just keep saying in my mind 50-50. It's 50-50.
So Dr. Gibson, I hear you. And even though, like I said, I did finally acquiesce and take the Pfizer vaccine, I do totally understand those who have chosen not to or are still discerning whether or not they want to do that. And this is the frame of reference that I come from. Currently, my doctor that I go to now is integrative. And so we don't start with medicine first. And I think that's a part of your background as well. So we don't start with medicine first. We talk about building up the body to keep the body strengthened so that you can withstand some of these things. Well, and also for some people, they believe that the word of God is that, that for them digesting the word of God is going to keep them strengthened and allow them to be okay. I'm not, because I've taken the vaccine, I still understand because I've never had a flu shot or any of the other kinds of shots. So I guess thank you for the information, but I do also want to acknowledge those people that still are a little bit uncomfortable, with the vaccine for whatever the reason may be.
And I can say I even have some colleagues who have never taken the flu shot. Mm-hmm. They've never taken the flu shot, but this time they've actually taken the vaccine. Mm-hmm. And I'm asking them, I said, what's the difference? What's the difference? Because you still can die. You still can die with the flu.
That's right.
People die when they catch the flu because they have these comorbidities. So the percentage is not as high, but back in the day, and when it first came out, it was the Spanish flu. But but I said, what was the difference? And they were saying, well, we have these comorbidities, and plus I'm still seeing patients, and plus this, so I still need to have the ability to go in and see patients. So that was some of the reasons why they changed their minds and said, okay, I'll take the vaccine. Now I have some other colleagues; they're still thinking about it, because they're on the cuff of what's the long-term effect, what's going to happen down the road, and nothing to me. And I have a problem sometimes with my faith, but I said nothing is not, because to me, I look at it. Tomorrow is just not guaranteed for me, and I don't know that for sure. So I need to have some kind of, I guess I need to feel like that. Some kind of comfort of going to work, knowing that I am protected in some way, somehow, at least for a little while longer. And that was the thing for me.
Okay. And let me just also say this. Am I echoing? For the vaccine, as well as for mental health. There's some people in the church that don't believe they should ever go to a therapist, because of their faith. I, on the other hand, believe that God created therapists. God created doctors. God created medicine. And so I pray to be led to the right option, for whatever the situation is. So I do want to also balance that off too, because that can sometimes be an issue in our communities as well. So let me ask you this: what are antibodies? I kept hearing about antibodies, and you could go get a test to see if you have antibodies. What are antibodies, Dr. Gibson?
So basically, antibodies is a thing. It's a protein. It's a protein, and it tells you whether you have been exposed to whether you have some antibodies built up to a certain disease process. And so, like with the coronavirus, and I give you an example. When all the pandemic first hit, my daughter, being my daughter, being a 19-year-old, I'm going to California. You don't need to go to California. Why you need to go to California? Because it's my girlfriend's birthday, and I'm going. So I said, whatever. She goes to California. She gets back to Georgia. She is so sick. And I'm going, no, something else is going on. No, so let me get on the plane and go and check. So then I'm there, and she ends up in the hospital a few times in the emergency room because she's really, really sick. So then I said, I believe you had COVID. So why don't you go and get a test to see if you have any antibodies that have been built up, because your body now has recognized that virus and is built to start attacking and said, my antibodies start to build up, and I'm going to attack this virus and make sure I'm healthy and well again. So it's a protein that attacks foreign things that makes basically start to produce in your body. So, but the thing about it, when you have these antibodies, especially when you develop COVID and you've gotten past it, and so when you're not having any more symptoms, these antibodies, the literature says that the antibodies usually stay there from 3 months to 7 months. So you still need to get the vaccine. So you still need to get the vaccine at some point in time. So, but the antibodies, you can develop it against the bacteria, viruses, and so forth. This is a protective process.
Okay. Thank you. Because in the latter part of 2019, my grandson had the flu. And being grandma, I ran over to offer my assistance. And a few days later, I became very, very ill. And I had never felt like that before. And immediately I assumed I had the flu. I went to urgent care. I was given the nasal swab, and I was told that I did not have the flu. And I said, well, what is wrong with me? And the doctor looked at me and said, I don't know, but you do not have the flu. Later, I heard that the virus had actually been out maybe September of 2019. And possibly that's what I had. I was just fatigued for about 2 weeks. It was very, very difficult just to get around, and I had to force myself into doing things. So somebody had said to me after that came out, you should get a test to see if you have antibodies. But, I never did.
Yeah, so yeah, like I said, the literature says it lasts 3 to 7 months, and then there are two types of antibodies that's out there, and they have a lot of tests that are out there that they do for antibodies, but the FDA is like, well, they're not really big on this antibody process, So, but you can definitely go and check. You can do that.
Want to remind those who are in the webinar, if you have a question, please put it in the chat. One question that was sent to me ahead of time was whether or not you have any strategies for encouraging teenagers to get the vaccine, especially when their parents are reluctant themselves, or should we do something like that?
Well, for example, what's that big concert that's going to be here this summer in Chicago? Well, I can't think of it. It's on the tip of my tongue. That all the kids go to downtown.
Okay.
Lollapalooza.
Okay.
Well, I heard that the way you can get in is you have to show that you're vaccinated.
Oh.
So that may be an incentive for, the young people to say, look, I need to go get my vaccination because I want to be able to go to Lollapalooza.
Okay.
Those are just some incentives, or some people, example, my daughter wants to go to Canada for her 21st birthday. Well, you can't get into Canada unless you're vaccinated. So you have, in some countries, you cannot get in. You have to take your card unless you're vaccinated. So you have to think about that. So, and then, they talked about it on CNN today. Now, Pfizer and Moderna saying that the 12-year-olds to 16-year-olds, now they're saying that they can get they're gonna make the recommendation that they can also receive the vaccine, and that it is just as effective as it is in adults as well. So there's still going to be some of the kids that may have some the same reactions that adults have. So, and some of the reactions that you have are like, you may have a fever, body aches, a headache, feeling really fatigued and tired. So I tell people before they actually go and take the vaccine, drink a lot of water. A lot of water. I think I drank 84 ounces of water before I went to take both my vaccines. And because they kept saying, well, maybe you should take the day off on your second vaccine. I said, word, because I was fine. So
what was the purpose of the water?
It's because it just helps hydrate your cells. It's hydrating you to get ready for this vaccine. So I just say drink a lot of water.
Okay. Interesting.
That's the one thing I recommend. The water and getting rest, trying to eat healthy, staying healthy, and so forth is really, really important. And if you want to take your vitamins, that's fine too. So take care of yourself. Because an example, a friend of mine, she got the J&J. Right after she got the J&J, she went and had mimosas. Since she was sick. I was like, well, you were sitting there drinking mimosa. You didn't drink any water. She said, you're sick for 2 days. I said, well, did you drink any water?
Oh, wow.
So those types of things, just have the little things that you can do just to take care of yourself.
Well, one of the questions that was in the chat, you answered it, and that was about the young people and taking the vaccine. The person that wrote the question was concerned about her child going back to school in the fall, which many of the schools are, definitely going back full time in the fall.
And then the thing is, I do want people to realize they keep saying that young people are not really getting sick. There are a lot of young people who are really getting sick from this. Mm-hmm. And I am seeing this every day in the emergency room. It's not like that, a lot of them are not having symptoms, but a lot of them are. And some, and they talk about the more common symptoms. If a young person comes in and they say, I'm just having diarrhea, it's COVID. It's COVID. Just diarrhea alone. That's all they have to have. It's COVID. I've seen it happen so many times. And people like, well, how do you cope with working in an emergency room, especially the part when you have to sew up people's mouths and stuff? I said, it is what it is. I put put my gear on, I put my shield on, and I just go in. And I just say, God, you got this. You are my armor.
Amen. Amen.
And that's all I say.
Thank you. What I want to do, I want to go back to Reverend Fox for anything. Okay, wait a minute. I see a question. Some doctors say to also take Zyrtec, Pepcid, and lots of water. That was already mentioned. Yeah. My doctor advised increasing my supplements, my vitamin D, my vitamin C, to start taking vitamin D, A, right. And those kind of things. And so even before I had decided, about a month before, I began to do that just to prepare my body in the event that I, decided to go ahead and do it. But, in general, we're supposed to be taking care of our bodies anyway. It's God's temple.
Right.
So that's what we should be doing. So I'm going to turn it over to Reverend Fox, because we're running close on time, and I want to see if there's something that I didn't say that you want to share, something that you really need people to know.
I think with this increase of inquiries about people seeking mental health therapy and just the increase over the past year in particular, that sometimes people often also ask about life coaching. Life coaching and psychotherapy and counseling are not the same thing. And sometimes people say, well, I want a life coach because I want to deal with, goals and achieving this, that, and the other in terms of their life. But also it may be associated with the stigma issues around mental health issues. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't want to tell my friends that I see a therapist. They just don't want to do that. But it's okay to say you're seeing a life coach, because that's like seeing a personal trainer or something like that. So we still need to combat, especially in our community, we need to combat this stigma associated with addressing our mental health needs. That again, it hopefully over time, it'll become kind of a thing of choice. People are into fads. And so I back in the day when I was on staff at Trinity United Church of Christ in Chicago, I ran the Pastoral Counseling Center. And several of my clients there were members of Trinity. And so then I was also in the pulpit on Sunday, and I'd look out over, everyone who's sitting there, and I say, there's Miss So-and-so, my client, and there's Miss So and Mr. So-and-so, and what have you. But I couldn't say anything because of confidentiality. So inevitably after service, they come up, my folks will come up to me, Reverend Fox, how you doing? And they would tell, this my therapist. And I thought, the secret's out. You need to go see her too. You need to go check yourself before you wreck yourself. So the word is getting out through various means that it is okay to talk to somebody. I just say, when I talk to my clients in my office, I said, we just having kitchen table talk. We're just talking. They say, okay. Because you got to create an atmosphere of comfort, an atmosphere of safe space where people can feel transparent and vulnerable, and they're able to share and know that they're being heard. Because that's it, we have tricks and tools in our toolbox and what have you. I'm going to do this technique. I'm going to do that technique. But the most important technique in terms of what I learned is the therapeutic relationship. Bottom line, full stop. That therapeutic relationship where that person, that eyeball to eyeball or virtually heart to heart contact with another person, another human who has your best interest at heart, who's non-judgmental, who allows you space to verbalize your thoughts and feelings, that in and of itself, not using all the tools and techniques, that in and of itself provides healing and change in another person. And so I would just offer that as well, that this is the time when we need to use the opportunities, especially now that many of these things are virtual now. Yeah. Can't say that I can't go to the office. No, you can Zoom it. Make it happen. And so I think we feel ourselves of the resources that are at our disposal as best we can.
Dr. Gibson was joking earlier and said something about people born in the 60s and beyond. And I laughed because I'm 57. And so I'm not 57. I was born in the year 57. So I laughed, but see, I was one of the different one, because my mom is a licensed clinical social worker and therapist. And so, we were accustomed to that, that understanding that if something's wrong, then you need to seek professional help. And my mother practiced on us a lot. We were her guinea pigs. She's on the line too. We were, and someone said, some people think that turning to social media is a way of therapy. Oh my God, yes. Yeah, for real. That's interesting. But that's a whole nother topic.
I was going to say that's a whole nother topic.
It really is.
Reverend Seaton, I wanted to add one other thing, is that for people of color, they have a lot a lot of scientists who worked on this vaccine who were African Americans.
Yeah.
I mean, the young lady from the NIH, I mean, Corbett, she was fantastic. And it's a couple of scientists that I know that work for Pfizer. They were African Americans. They all worked on the vaccine. So, I mean, it's really important. And they wanted this vaccine to work because they wanted it, because number one, our community was affected the most. And I don't want people to think that is a research for African Americans. They were just researching on us, another research project, trying to see. But no, this is important. This is about saving lives. And we had quite a few African Americans who are scientists who are also working on in each company.
And that was very different. That's very different from in the past. And so, yeah, thank you for lifting that up. That was certainly breathtaking to see that, because oftentimes we are not in the room when these kind of decisions are made and all of these kind of experimentations and all of those kind of things. So that was very, very good. So look, we're going to probably have to do a part 2 of this. I do pray that you feel like you got some information out. We weren't trying to persuade anybody. So let me just say that I'm not trying to persuade anybody to do anything. I'm not trying to persuade you to take the vaccine. I'm not trying to say that, you need some therapy and you should go. We just want to give you the information because we know for a fact that the pandemics that we are in are not going anywhere soon, and that they have affected people in a myriad of ways. We have people who had to bury loved ones, but they could not have a funeral. We had people whose loved ones passed away in the hospital and they could not be there. These are different things, and you might not feel the effects of them right at that moment, but you don't know what might come along the way. So we're just planting some seeds. And I again want to thank my very dear friend, Dr. Gibson, who was my doctor. So I'm telling y'all, she's good. And Reverend Dr. Pamela Fox, who is equally just an awesome and beautiful spirit, who counseled and gave me therapy on those days when I wanted to quit seminary. So I thank you so much. God had a plan and he put you in my life so that I could get through. I want to thank all of you all that joined us tonight. We love you so much. If you are not a member of Grace United Church of Christ, or if you're not a member of any church, or you just want somewhere to visit, I just want to let you know that we are in service the first 3 Sundays of the month. We are socially distanced. We use PPE. We don't play that now. we are following the CDC guidelines. Service is at 11 a.m. Sunday school is at 10 a.m. Bible study is on Thursdays via Zoom, and we have a food pantry on Wednesdays from 4 until 6. So God bless you. And once again, thank you, Dr. Gibson. Thank you, Reverend Dr. Pamela Fox. And thank you, all of you, for joining us this evening. God bless you and God keep you.
Thank you.